Look at that thing. It's rotating.
What was in the skies over Jerusalem, and why did it sound one of the most treasured sites in Christianity?
Alrighty. It is Tuesday the 17th. UFO Congressional hearings are live, and so are we. Fix the camera. Do I sound okay? Because I also fixed the microphone. That's right, kids. I found a lot of things last night. So I hope this sounds okay. I know it looks fine. I can't believe this picture. That's the best it's looked. Ever. I'm so tired. I haven't even slept. But that's okay. I'll sleep after this. But I almost look like, it looks like they're swollen. Yes, you are Akashi Chris, a Goofonian. Welcome to the show, everybody. We are here early in the morning at 9 a.m. I'm going to pull up the live congressional hearings that are supposed to be going on right now. I see a bunch of other channels are on. They're live. You know, I'm just looking for everybody's live right now. Everybody. That's unbelievable. Yeah. Where do you want to go and watch it? Does anybody have any ideas on where you think would be the best place? Because I was trying to look for a place, and I'm not really sure where the best place would be to go. Just anywhere? Should I go to CNET? CNET good? Let's go there. Holy shit, it started. Hold on. Here it comes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
AIMSOG. For short, today we will bring that organization out of the shadows. This hearing and oversight work has a simple idea at its core. Unidentified aerial phenomena are a potential national security threat, and they need to be treated that way. For too long, the stigma associated with UAPs has gotten in the way of good intelligence analysis.
Told you.
Pilots avoided reporting or were laughed at when they did. DoD officials relegated the issue to the back room or swept it under the rug entirely, fearful of a skeptical national security community. Today, we know better. UAPs are unexplained, it's true, but they are real. They need to be investigated, and many threats they pose need to be mitigated. Undersecretary Moultrie, Mr. Bray, thank you for coming today. First, we need you to update us on the status of AIMSOG. The legislation creating it was passed in December. The deadline for implementation is fast approaching, but the group does not even have a named director. We need to know, sirs, the status of the organization and the obstacle to getting it up and running. Secondly, you have to convince the audience today, and most especially our military and civilian aviators, the culture has changed. That those who report UAPs will be treated as witnesses, not as kooks. Thirdly, you need to show us, Congress, and the American public whose imaginations you have captured. You are willing to follow the facts where they lead. You know, we fear sometimes that the DoD is focused more on emphasizing what it can explain, not investigating what it can't. I'm looking for you to assure us today that all conclusions are on the table. One final note, we are mindful today that AIMSOG is not starting from scratch. This is the third version of this task force in DoD, and civil society groups like the Mutual UFO Network, Mr. Corbell and others have been collecting data on this issue for years. I hope you'll explain how you can leverage the knowledge and experience of our prior work on this matter to move the AIMSOG along. The last time Congress had a hearing on UAPs was half a century ago. I hope that it does not take 50 more years for Congress to hold another, because transparency is desperately needed. I now turn to Ranking Member Crawford for comments he'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Moultrie, Mr. Bray, thank you for coming here today. We appreciate it. To begin the open dialogue between Congress and the executive branch on this important topic. While this topic evokes creative imaginations of many, aside from all the hype and speculation, there are important underlying issues posed by UAPs. Despite the serious nature of this topic, I have to say I'm more interested in our understanding of Chinese and Russian hypersonic weapon development, or understanding why this administration was so slow to share actionable intelligence with the Ukrainians. However, inasmuch as this topic may help us better understand unknown activities of Russia and China, I am on board. The intelligence community has a serious duty to our taxpayers to prevent potential adversaries such as China and Russia from surprising us with unforeseen new technologies. As overseers of the intelligence community, this committee has an obligation to understand what you are doing to determine whether any UAPs are new technologies or not. And if they are, where are they coming from? In general, the IC spends much of its time and resources trying to understand what we call known unknowns. When it comes to foreign nations' weapons systems and sensors, known unknowns are those features that we don't fully understand yet. The challenge associated with UAP is that they are completely unknown and require a more expansive collection and analysis effort. The intelligence community must balance addressing known threats to our national security with preventing technical surprise. We must continue to follow the facts where they lead us and ensure that there are no technical surprises. The IC must take it seriously when there are credible observations of phenomena that seem to perform in ways that could pose a threat to safe flight operations, or that could be signs of a foreign adversary's attempt to develop a strategic technological surprise against the United States. It's also essential that our pilots and others feel they can report UAPs they observe without any stigma for doing so. This is the open, unclassified portion of our hearing. We'll have a closed, classified part later. It's important for the public to know that the classification of information exists to protect national security, not to try to hide the truth. When we're trying to determine if any UAPs are new technologies being developed by foreign governments, we are inevitably going to run into classified information about what new systems and technologies we do know are in the works here or abroad. But where information does not risk national security, it should be shared with our allies and the public when feasible. I hope that we can have your assurance to this end today. It's my hope that the intelligence community will continue to try to determine the nature of UAPs we've observed, and will keep Congress fully apprised of all developments. I look forward to this hearing and continued dialogue and oversight with the intelligence community on this topic. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and now I will turn to our distinguished chairman, Adam Schiff.
I'm going to pause it for a moment just to talk. I want to thank you guys for the super chats, by the way, the Urban Way and Bernie Muro, and also Ben Yorkshire, UK. You guys rock. Thank you very much. Because this is such a historic thing, I really don't want to pause it at all. And until we get to different people that are going to speak, I think Schiff is going to speak here. But I can't believe Corbell's name was mentioned. And I want to ask you something. Do I sound too loud or awful? You know I sound bad, but I mean, is the sound okay? Because I did some work last night with the camera and the microphone, and I'm wondering if I sound okay. I'm not going to pause it anymore, but this is amazing. I'm just letting you know I'm a little loud. Damn it. That's what I'm trying to avoid. Some people say it's good. All right. Well, that's because I'm closer than I normally am. If I get back here, it's fine. All right. I'm going to continue. Adam Schiff is going to come on now, and I'm going to be right here.
For any comments he wishes to make.
Thank you, Chairman Carson, for holding this open hearing on unidentified aerial phenomenon and for your leadership on this issue. Holding a portion of our discussion today in open session is critical to the cause of transparency and openness which was Congress's intent in authorizing and funding this new task force. The larger effort that is being undertaken to study and characterize UAP reports is an important step towards understanding these phenomenon, what we know and don't know. And I look forward to hearing more during both the open session and the closed setting about how DOD and the IC are undertaking that task. UAP reports have been around for decades, and yet we haven't had an orderly way for them to be reported without stigma and to be investigated. That needs to change. UAP reports need to be understood as a national security matter, and that message needs to go out across DOD, the IC, and the whole of the U.S. government. When we spot something we don't understand or can't identify in our airspace, it's the job of those we entrust with our national security to investigate and to report back. That is why it's important that we hold this open hearing for the public to hear directly from the Department of Defense on the steps it's taking to track, analyze, and transparently communicate the work that is being done on this issue. It is also the responsibility of our government and this panel to share as much as we can with the American people, since excessive secrecy only breeds distrust and speculation. I look forward to hearing how the UAP task force is being stood up, what challenges they still face, and how this committee can make sure the task force is able to shed light on one of the world's most enduring mysteries. I thank you gentlemen for your work, and be very interested to hear what you have to say. To me, among the most fascinating questions are these phenomena that we can measure. That is, instruments report there is something there. It is not the human eye confusing objects in the sky. There is something there, measurable by multiple
Shut
instruments.
up. Get him
Yet
off.
It seems to move in
This guy's
directions
a
that are
fucking idiot.
inconsistent with what we know of physics or science.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
more
swear. It's
broadly.
early.
That to me poses questions of tremendous interest and as well as potential national security significance. So we look
Ugh.
forward to hearing what you're able to
Psycho.
report to us today in open session. And I want to thank Chairman Carson again for his
That's it. It's
extraordinary
over.
leadership on this issue, and I yield back.
Oh, it's not.
Chairman yields back. Thank you. With that, we will start our hearing. Under Secretary Moultrie, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Chairman Schiff, Committee Chairman Carson, Ranking Member Crawford, distinguished members of the subcommittee, it's a privilege to be here with you today to address your questions regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP. I'm pleased to be joined by Mr. Scott Bray, the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, who will speak to the Navy's Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, which laid the foundation for the efforts we will discuss today. First, I'd like to thank Congress for supporting the Department's UAP efforts. The NDAA for fiscal year 2022 has helped us to establish a dedicated office to oversee processes and procedures for the timely collection, processing, analysis, and reporting of UAP-related data. What are UAP? Put simply, UAP are airborne objects that, when encountered, cannot be immediately identified. However, it is the Department's contention that by combining appropriately structured, collected data with rigorous scientific analysis, any object that we encounter can likely be isolated, characterized, identified, and if necessary, mitigated. We know that our service members have encountered unidentified aerial phenomenon, and because UAPs pose potential flight safety and general security risk, we are committed to a focused effort to determine their origins. Our effort will include the thorough examination of adversarial platforms and potential breakthrough technologies, U.S. government or commercial platforms, allied or partner systems, and other natural phenomena. We also understand that there has been a cultural stigma surrounding UAP. Our goal is to eliminate the stigma by fully incorporating our operators and mission personnel into a standardized data gathering process. We believe that making UAP reporting a mission imperative will be instrumental to the effort's success. The Defense Intelligence and Security Enterprise provides real-time support to our warfighters and mission personnel across all domains. To optimize the Department's UAP work, we are establishing an office within the Office of the Secretary of Defense.
We know.
That office's function is clear: to facilitate the identification of previously unknown or unidentified airborne objects in a methodical, logical, and standardized manner. These goals will ensure that we are working closely with operational personnel on training and reporting requirements, developing data and intelligence requirements, standardizing and integrating processes and procedures for collection, operational surveillance, analysis, and reporting, leveraging our research and development capabilities to improve detection, characterization, and identification of UAPs, developing mitigating solutions and procedures, and identifying strategy and policy solutions. This effort will maximize collaboration and build upon already existing relationships with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the FAA, DHS, and the FBI. We are also committed to strong partnerships with the Department of Energy, NOAA, the DEA, NASA, and the national labs, and just as importantly, our international partners and allies. With regard to the importance of transparency, the Department is fully committed to the principle of openness and accountability to the American people. However, we are also mindful of our obligation to protect sensitive sources and methods. Our goal is to strike that delicate balance, one that enables us to maintain the public's trust while preserving those capabilities that are vital to the support of our service personnel. In closing, the Department is committed to this effort and welcomes the challenge. We thank you for your committed support and look forward to your questions.
Gangsters, thugs, and smugglers.
Ranking Member Crawford and committee members, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today to highlight the ongoing work of the Department of Defense regarding unidentified aerial phenomena. Since the early 2000s, we have seen an increasing number of unauthorized and or unidentified aircraft or objects in military-controlled training areas and training ranges and other designated airspace. Reports of sightings are frequent and continuing. We attribute this increase in reporting to a number of factors, including our work to destigmatize reporting, an increase in the number of new systems such as quadcopters and unmanned aerial systems that are in our airspace, identification of what we can classify as clutter, mylar balloons, and other types of air trash, and improvements in the capabilities of our various sensors to detect things in our airspace. Almost 2 years ago, in August of 2020, Deputy Secretary of Defense Nordquist directed the establishment of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force within the Department of the Navy. The UAP Task Force was built on the foundation of the Navy's initial efforts to respond to the reports from our aviators on unidentified objects observed in our training ranges. The basic issues then and now are twofold. First, incursions in our training ranges by unidentified objects represent serious hazards to safety of flight. In every aspect of naval aviation, safety of our aircrews is paramount.
There's never been an accident that we know of caused by UFOs, UAPs, right? Right.
Second, intrusions by unknown aircraft or objects pose potential threats to the security of our operations. Our aviators train as they would fight. So any intrusions that may compromise the security of our operations by revealing our capabilities, our tactics, techniques, or procedures are of great concern to the Navy and the Department of Defense. From the very beginning, we took these reports very seriously. We instituted a data-driven approach to the investigations where we could collect as much data as possible and use all available resources to analyze and make informed decisions on the best ways to address our findings. Our main objective was to transition UAP efforts from an anecdotal or narrative-based approach to a rigorous science and technology engineering-focused study. This data-driven approach requires input from a wide variety of sources. In the early stages, the task force worked to standardize the reporting mechanisms and processes to make it as easy as possible for personnel to report any engagement so that we were getting that wide range of reporting that we needed. We also spent considerable efforts engaging directly with our naval aviators and building relationships to help destigmatize the act of reporting sightings or encounters. And we worked with naval aviation leadership to provide additional equipment to record any encounter. Navy and Air Force crews now have step-by-step procedures for reporting on a UAP on their knee board in the cockpit and in their post-flight debrief procedures.
All these people have been convinced that this unknown phenomenon, I'm going to pause it because I have to say something. Can't just sit here at the chat room, take all all the credit for saying stuff, but I'm reading what you guys are saying. This is probably going to be on for a couple of hours the way they're going. But I don't know. I don't see or hear anything yet that is making me say, oh, great. So what they're going to do is try to, figure out what these objects are. Why don't they just say that? You know what I mean? I mean, we understand. All right. I just wanted to, if you're looking for disclosure today, you're not going to see it. This is just the first step with the congressional hearings to get the government, that office, the AOI MSG, get everything out in the open and try to be as transparent as possible, which we know won't happen. But anyway, this to me is going to be, it looks like they give a shit about UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call it. But in my mind, I don't think they really care about aliens or the unknown or the paranormal. I don't think that they care. Really, I think it's just it's a ruse to get the funding, get the backing by the government to have this office. I don't know what for yet. Does anybody know? To cover up what's really going on? That it's our technology? I'm telling you, man.
The direct result of those efforts has been increased reporting, with increased opportunities to focus a number of sensors on any objects. The message is now clear. If you see something, you need to report it. And the message has been received. In fact, recently, I received a call from a senior naval aviator with over 2,000 flight hours. He called me personally from the flight line after landing to talk about an encounter that he had just experienced. Those were just the initial steps. We also made a concerted effort to assemble subject matter experts from across the Department of Defense and the intelligence community and other U.S. government agencies and departments. We forged partnerships with the research, development, and acquisition communities, with industry partners, and with academic research labs, and we brought many allies and international partners into our discussions on UAP. Additionally, subject matter experts from a wide variety of fields, including physics, optics, metallurgy, meteorology, just to name a few, have been brought in to expand our understanding in areas where we may not have organic expertise. In short, we've endeavored to bring an all-hands-on-deck approach to better understand this phenomena. So what have we learned so far? Any given observation may be fleeting or longer. It may be recorded or not. It may be observable by one or multiple assets. In short, there's rarely an easy answer. For example, let me share with you the first video that we have here today, which shows an observation in real time. There it was. That's, in many cases, that's all that a report may include. And in many other cases, we have far less.
Wait, what was that?
As we
Was that
detailed
the
in both
Batman
the
balloon?
unclassified and classified versions of the preliminary assessment released by the Office of the Director of National
Is that what that
Intelligence
was?
last June, this
That
often limited amount of high-quality data and reporting hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature or intent of UAP. As detailed in the ODNI report, if and when individual UAP...
Hold on. Did you see it? No, I'll go back. Come on. This is unbelievable. This is this is the evidence they're showing us. Watch. It goes by so fast that if even if you half blink, where is it? As soon as it goes to that other view, I mean, you only get a frame or two of it coming up. That was it. You get one frame, and it's nothing. I have to get lucky here. Did I miss it already? Ah, you sister's ass. I know, you guys. Don't worry, you're not missing anything. I'll give myself one more try. That was it. I'm sorry. I think I got it now. Ready? Last try, and then we'll go back to the live. There's nothing there. It's ridiculous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. This is the third version of this task force, and to be frank, one of Congress's concerns is that the executive branch and administration, both parties, has been sweeping concerns about UAPs under the rug by focusing on events that can be explained and avoiding events that cannot be explained. What can you what can you say to give the American people confidence that you aren't just focusing our attention on low-hanging fruit with easy explanations?
Congressman, I'll start, and then Mr. Bray, please feel free to weigh in. So the way that we're approaching this is with a more thorough, standardized methodology than what we have in the past. First and foremost, the Secretary of Defense is chartering this effort. This is not someone lower in the Department of Defense. And he has assigned that task to the Office of Secretary of Defense, the Undersecretary for Intelligence and Security, that's me, because I'm responsible for looking at intelligence matters, I'm responsible for security matters. This is potentially both. So when you start concerning ourselves with the safety of our personnel, the safety of our installations and bases, there's no other higher priority than what we have than actually getting after this. And as you have stated, we have been assigned that task to actually stand up an office, the AIM-SOG, which I believe the name, sir, will likely change. But we have moved forward in terms of moving to establish that office. We have, as of this week, picked a director for that effort, a very established and accomplished individual. We've identified spaces. We've worked with personnel across the Department of Defense with the services, and we've worked with the IC, which is on board in helping us work through this standardized methodology for now, bringing in data, analyzing that data, and reporting that data in the appropriate method and appropriate means so we can either get it to our service personnel to ensure their safety, or get it to you and the Congress and to the public to ensure that you have oversight to what we're doing. So chartered by the Secretary of Defense, standardized, and really a methodical approach is something that we're doing that has not been done before.
Can we get some kinds of assurances that your analysts will follow the facts where they lead and assess all hypotheses?
Absolutely. So we're open to all hypotheses. We're open to any conclusions that we may encounter.
Quickly, before I pass it to the ranking member and Chairman Schiff, I want to thank you both for taking the time, and I had a good time meeting with you last week, Director Moultrie, Undersecretary Moultrie. It's fair to say that you are a science fiction fan, is that correct?
It is fair to say that I am an inquisitive mind who has spent 40 years in the intelligence field and has focused on both science and science fiction. That is fair.
Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, yeah, look, my generation grew up looking at space sagas and the Apollo program. So all of us who grew up in the 60s were just thrilled by watching our first astronaut land on the moon. That was a momentous occasion. To people who were of different generations, some of them didn't believe that it happened. I still have relatives and friends who don't believe it happened, right? Science fiction to them. But to us, it was, no, that's the progress that we've made. And so I was enthralled by that, and I've taken that to heart. I enjoy the challenge of what may be out there. I have mentioned to you that, yes, I have followed science fiction. I have gone to conventions, even. I'll say it on the record. Got to break the ice somehow. But, you know, I have done that, right? But there's nothing wrong with that. Don't necessarily dress up, but I do, you know, I do believe that it's important to show that the Department of Defense has, you know, we have character, and we're people just like you, just like the American people. We have our inquisitiveness. We have our questions. We want to know what's out there as much as you want to know what's out there. We get the questions not just from you, we get it from family members. and we get them night and day, not just in committee hearings. So finding what's out there is important, but first and foremost, it's important for us to do that so that we can ensure that our people, our personnel, our aviators, our bases and installations are safe. And then that curiosity factor is something else that we just want to know, because that's the human race. It's just, that insatiable desire to know.
Thank you, sir. Ranking Member Crawford.
Mr. Moultrie, you said you don't necessarily dress up. That wasn't a real strong statement. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Moultrie, for breaking the ice the way you did. Appreciate that. The inability to understand objects in our sensitive operating areas is tantamount to an intelligence failure that we certainly want to avoid. This is not about finding alien spacecraft, but about delivering dominant intelligence across the tactical, operational, and strategic spectrum. So my question is, how can AIMSOG lead to prevention of intelligence surprises?
Sure, I'll start with that. So the goal of our effort is to integrate it into what we already do on a normal basis, which is look for the unknowns, Congressman, as you stated in your opening remarks, across all domains. So we've been doing this for decades. We've been looking at the space domain, looking at space objects, looking at space weather, looking at space phenomenon. We've been looking at things in the air domain, and we, as you know, and I'll talk more about this in classified session, but we have a very concerted effort to understand adversarial platforms and adversarial developmental programs. And we do that also in the ground domain. And of course, we're very interested in what happens in the underwater or sea domain, if you will, subsurface domain. So if there are objects that our aviators or air crews are encountering in this air domain, and their sensors are discovering or detecting some of these objects, we want to just bring that in to the normal process that we have for identifying unknown unknowns. We want to make sure we have the intelligence requirements that allow us not only to look at that event from the time that it occurs forward, but maybe retrospectively, we want to go back and see if we can get to the left of that event to say, was there some developmental program that we, to get to your technical surprise issue, sir, that we should have known about? And if so, how do we put that intelligence requirement in place to ensure that we are following an adversarial development or any other development that may be out there? So that's what we want to do in terms of normalizing this and bringing it into the normal process of how we identify unknown unknowns.
So you mentioned fidelity, and I think it's important to talk about the relationship from the Navy as the lead agency on this. How do you interact with Space Force, Air Force to create that degree of fidelity? We're talking about sensors and so on, and I guess where I have some concerns that many of the images that we see commonly in this committee and even in open source, the resolution and the clarity that would allow a robust technical intelligence analysis is challenging. So is AIMSOG prepared to address the quality and quantity of data collected on UAP to advance intelligence collection? And do you have the adequate sensors you need to collect that high-quality data?
One of the lines of effort that we have is looking at our sensor capabilities and to understand whether or not, as the video showed that Mr. Bray displayed, sometimes it's very fleeting data that we have on some of these objects. And we want to make sure that, one, our systems are calibrated to actually be able to collect on the objects. Our sensors today they're calibrated for specific things. We want to make sure to calibrate it for things of this nature, things of this size, things of this velocity, if I can use that term. We want to make sure that once we have that data is stored in some standardized.
How do you not have that technology? You have cameras, you have radar, you have multiple, you have everything. What are you talking about? Oh, we need to put it in data, so we need to save it and store this. What are you, an idiot? How old? I mean, oh, this is getting bad.
Whatever we may have from other sensors that we may have in different domains. We want to be able to integrate that all and get this integrated picture as we would, as I said, with any other unidentified objects or things that we are tracking as a part of our normal intelligence responsibilities.
You mean they weren't doing that?
Mr. Bray, if you would.
Come on, man.
Navy pilot, I've encountered a UAP. Walk me through the reporting protocol once I see something that I think.
Who cares about reporting? We get it. I'm going to let it run, but I'm going to talk because this is so far. I mean, I don't mind listening to it, but they're for you and me. We know it all, right? We know what they're saying, where they're going to go, how they're going to say it. What we just heard was interesting, that they want to integrate the correct technology to record these anomalous UAPs when they're out there doing their sorties or flying around training missions, etc. I'm finding this to be a little bit frustrating because they're talking about stuff that doesn't need to be talked about. It's obvious that we need to have this stuff integrated. We get it, but I guess they are really going to cover every single inch of the subject. So I'm going to see what they're talking about now, because they were just talking about integrating
The task force contact the aviator.
and on how these pilots and other aviators are going to report UFOs. I mean, really?
Database where we begin to compare it with other observations that we have, again, comparing for locations, comparing for altitude, speeds, shapes, if any RF emissions.
So you mean UFOs have been flying around since 2004, almost every day, according to Ryan Graves and others, and you don't think that they have this stuff on video already and have analyzed and studied it all?
Image that looked like it was outside of a plane.
Who are they
window.
kidding?
And if you wouldn't mind going up to the screen and tell us what we're seeing.
Right.
Not that you can necessarily tell us what we're seeing, but explain what we should be looking at in that first
we go.
image.
Absolutely. And Alexi, what I'll ask is if you can stop it at a certain point.
There's your dot. This is unbelievable. They're actually going to slow it down. This is beautiful. It is a UFO, though. I mean, you can't deny it. Is it a balloon? You mean they don't have a still image already set up for this? Idiots.
And are we looking outside
This is
of a,
this is the
civilian
government
aircraft
for
window?
sure.
Is that what we're
They don't even have a
looking at?
still image ready. I feel like I'm so loud. God. Look at this. They're having a worse time than I did, and these are the people that we're going to put our faith in to set this up so we can capture this stuff and analyze it. Well, not you or I, but he can't figure out where the dot is. Yeah, welcome to my world, pal. Look how long it's taken him. It's been 45 seconds. He still can't get it. Okay, keep going. One more. Oh, no, the other way. The other way. Go the other way, you dipstick. Oh my God, this is the dumbest person on the planet. It's the other way, idiot. There it is. Oh, I saw a dot. Oh my God. This is who we're They can't get it. Nobody thought of getting a still frame for the presentation, you dummies. This is what we're doing. We're putting our faith in this. They can't even pause a video to see a dot. Probably a balloon or a bag 20,000 feet up. I don't know. It looks like a real UFO, though. I don't know if it's the Batman, though. I don't think it's the Batman balloon. Hey, Rebecca. Yeah, I didn't do roll call, did I? Yeah, I'm sorry. It just, when we got here, it already started. And I was so shocked by that. I wouldn't have even done the intro. Look at this. 2 minutes now. They're trying to find how to pause it on the UFO. This is your government
if you can
at
stop
work.
that frame. No, it's not.
If you can just still frame it for me. But while they're doing this, this is, look, this is history. I know you're not happy with it. I am, though. I love this. I think this is so cool that Congress is talking about UFOs in a serious, seems like a serious manner to me. But it is historic because this may, all right, here's why, this is how you know it's going to be historic. If they continue with other things like this, other congressional hearings perhaps, or more news briefs, things of that nature. And I know that the AOI MSG is going to be doing that annually, but we need it every 6 months. I think every 6 months it should be disseminated to the, can you believe these idiots?
The laptop we're working with is not as easy for stopping that video in the right spot.
I'm embarrassed.
Describe what we have seen in that. What are we observing?
Staged? This isn't staged. John
aircraft
Williams.
that is operating
Staged?
in a U.S. Navy.
Well, I don't know what you mean by staged. Which one?
Spherical object
Check my Gmail quick.
in that area, and as they fly by it, they take a video. You see it looks reflective in this video, somewhat reflective, and it quickly passes by the cockpit of the aircraft.
Oh, Rochelle Lynch
And
sent
is
$5.
this one of the phenomena that we
Didn't
can't
get to
explain?
later.
I do not have an explanation
I don't know what I'm looking for.
what this specific object is.
Told me to go to my
one of the
Gmail. I don't see
situations where
anything.
It is, that's the object that we're looking at right there? Thank you. And is this a situation where it was observed by the pilot
John.
and it was also recorded by
I don't
the
oh,
aircraft
this thing?
instruments?
We'll talk about the multi-sensor part in a later session. But in this case, we have at
Yeah,
least that.
that's not clear enough, John.
In
That-
the Director of
there's a
National
clear
Intelligence,
image than that.
2021 unclassified report, the ODNI reported 144
I can't
UAPs
share it.
between 2004 and 2021, 80% of which were recorded on multiple instruments.
Thanks,
I
John.
take it, with respect to some of those, you had a pilot seeing them, if it was observed by a pilot, and you had multiple instruments recording it. So you really have three sensors, the human sensor and two technical.
Two pilots supposedly saw.
sensors detecting
Get
the
it
object.
right, dude.
For the majority of incidents that we had in the last year's report, the majority had multi-sensor data. When I talk about the 400 reports that we have now, that number will certainly go down because a lot of those new reports that we have are actually historic reports that are narrative-based. So that percentage will go down just as a factor of the fact that the destigmatization has resulted in more narrative reports.
And that's the object we're looking at right there now, right?
That's it right there.
Okay. Last year's report also said that of those 144, 18 of them reportedly appeared to exhibit unusual flight characteristics,
Show the
appear to
video.
demonstrate advanced technology, and some of them appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. That's pretty intriguing. And if you're able to answer this in this setting, are we aware of any foreign adversary capable of moving objects without any discernible means of propulsion?
I think I would, without discernible means of propulsion, I would say that we're not aware of any adversary that can move an object without discernible means of propulsion. The question then becomes, in many of these cases where we don't have a discernible mean of propulsion in the data that we have, in some cases, there is likely sensor artifacts that may be hiding some of that. There's certainly some degree of something that looks like signature management that we have seen from some of these UAP, but I would caution. I would simply say that there are a number of events in which we do not have an explanation, and there are a small handful in which there are flight characteristics or signature management that we can't explain with the data that we have. We'll continue. Those are obviously the ones that are of most interest to us. Earlier, when we asked about how you avoid technological surprise, The biggest way you avoid technological surprises is by collecting this type of data and by, importantly, calibrating the assumptions that you go into with how you do that analysis. I'll tell you, within the UAP task force, we have one basic assumption, and that is that generally speaking, our sensors operate as designed. And we make that assumption because many times these are multi-sensor collections. We make no assumptions about the origin of this or that there may or may not be some sort of technology that we don't understand. That's, I think, the key to avoiding technological surprises by calibrating those assumptions.
And finally, with respect to the second two videos showing the small triangles, the hypothesis is that those are commercial drones that, because of the use of night vision goggles, appear like triangles. Is that the operating assessment?
Some type of drone, some type of unmanned aerial system, and it is simply that light source resolves itself through the night vision goggles onto the SLR camera as a triangle.
And have we, in order to prove that hypothesis, flown a drone and observed it with that same technology to see whether we can reproduce the effect?
The UAP task force is aware of studies that have done that.
That's not an answer. They're aware of studies, whether they recorded a drone in a similar situation to see if it gave the same effects. Wouldn't you love to see that evidence? I sure would. But he's aware of it. Oh, they are so bad at lying.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
That's not even an answer.
Gentleman yields back. Dr. Winstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here.
God, I hate politicians.
My first question is, through this process where there's been sightings, have the sightings been stationary or have they always been sighted from a moving object, from a plane or a ship that may be moving? Have these reports ever come from a stationary object being observed in the sky?
The UAP task force does have reports from reports from a stationary observer.
Because there's a difference observing something when you're moving as
Right.
well. It's physics, right? So that's
Right.
why I asked that question. Are we capable or have we made any breakthroughs or anyone made any breakthroughs to be able to cite something and make some determination at all of its composition, whether it's a solid or a gas? Is there any
Good
such
question.
capability?
From
Not asking what, I'm just.
Right. From some of the returns, I mean, it's clear that that the majority, well, it's clear that many of the observations we have are physical objects from the sensor data that we have.
He didn't answer it again. Anything made of metal, anything made of wood, anything made of grass. We smoke it.
Well, gas is physical, is a physical object. It can be, and so, and you see where I'm going with this. I'm trying to determine what it is
He
we're
doesn't
looking
see.
at. So if we can decide if something is a solid or a gas, and if there have been any conclusion on its capabilities, like its capabilities of movement, of turning, going, 180 degrees or 90-degree turn, anything along that line that we've been able to determine.
Within the, and again, I should point out that, that there is not a single explanation for UAP. There are a lot of different things that are unidentified aerial phenomena.
Basically, we really don't know much on that. That's all I'm trying to get at. And I'm pleased that you have protocol right now for our military, but are there any non-military reports coming forward of similar events, or is it all coming from military?
The UAP task force has a very good working relationship with the FAA. They have very good working relationship with other parts of the U.S. government so that we can ingest reports from
Do we have
from
any
those sources.
reports non-military?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. That's my question.
Oh, this guy's a dick. Not him, the
And
other
do we
guy.
need to put out protocol for civilians that may be in that arena, like through FAA? Do you think that would be appropriate and helpful?
I think
It goes to Bass. Doesn't it go to Bass if you're calling it in to the FAA? Doesn't it go to his office? Isn't that where it's right? Isn't that, I remember that. That's true. It goes to the Bass Industries or something like that if you're going to report something to the FAA, right? Or am I wrong on what I'm remembering here? This is just, wow. This guy, Scott Bray, he doesn't answer, man. It's word salad, as somebody said in the chat.
Standardized the reporting, without a doubt, is key to helping us get to ascertain what some of these are.
I think it would be important as well. Do we, there are other people besides the U.S. that have had these experiences and reported them? Is that correct?
There are, that's correct.
Is it all of our allies, or is it allies and adversaries? What have we learned publicly?
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
Well, that goes to my next question. Publicly, have others made anything which would not have to be considered closed? I don't want you to answer what they've said necessarily.
Allies have seen these. China has established its own version of a UAP task force, so clearly a number of countries have observations of things in the airspace that they can't identify.
And do we share data with some, with all? Are they sharing
Thanks,
with
B.
us?
Collins.
We share data with some.
You
and
missed
share
some
data with-
stuff. They showed a UFO.
But not necessarily all that have
A dot.
publicly reported something?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think that's an important thing, and for the other session, actually, that we don't discuss that now. Because, you know, obviously, something like this can be a national security challenge for us, and no doubt about it.
Not just
They're developed by
talking
an
about it.
adversary. Through some breakthrough technology, they can be very disruptive to our military actions, or at least serve as a distraction. So my caution would be careful who we share our data with, and don't necessarily trust some of the data we may get from someone else. And with that, I yield back.
Gentlemen, yield
Nice,
back, Mr.
Dr.
Hines.
Winstrup. Beautiful. He was the best.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the objectives of this open hearing is to try to erode some of the stigma that attaches to, in particular, our military men and women reporting this. It's obviously really very serious because should one of our adversaries have developed a technology that we don't know about it, we need to know about it yesterday. And obviously, any sort of stigma that prevents our military from reporting this data as comprehensively as possible is a national security threat. So I really just have two questions in the service of that goal. The first is, the chairman asked that we run that video again. Most people, when they see a video, we're all used to seeing things from a car, seeing things from a sidewalk. Very few people have the experience of observing something through night vision goggles at Mach 1.5. So just talk for a minute about, if you would, whichever of you is most appropriate, how radically different observation is at high speed and 3-dimension than it is for most of us who walk around and drive cars.
So the first thing I think that's important to note about this is there are lots of things when you are moving very fast and an object is between you and a stationary
This is the
reference point like ground,
stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It gives a lot of different impressions about how quickly.
Really?
something-
That's a question? That's the guy's question. Do things look different when you're on the ground like we are than when you're in an airplane or a jet?
Happen very quickly, as you see there.
The guy's going to have to explain
Very quickly, something may be
parallaxing
that aircraft
to this
is
guy.
quite fast.
This is ridiculous right now.
Probably very slow.
What a dumb question.
So
I guess they're going to ask everything.
observation, either a visual observation or a electronic observation, infrared or whatever, looks radically different than it does to most people. Even instruments are on gimbals and that sort of thing, so that creates a very unusual view to, again, those of us who are used to seeing things in 2 dimensions largely. And second question, I think, Mr. Bray, you said something that I want to unpack a little bit. A number of these UAPs, you said, we can't explain. Again, in the service of sort of reducing speculation and conspiracy theories, we can't explain can range from a visual observation that was distant on a foggy night, we don't know what it is, to we've found an organic material that we can't identify, right? Those are radically different worlds. So when you say we can't explain, give the public a little bit better sense of where on that spectrum of we can't explain we are. Are we holding materials, organic or inorganic, that we don't know about? Are we, picking up emanations that are something other than light or infrared that could be deemed to be communications? Give us a sense for what you mean when you say we can't explain.
Sure. When I say we can't explain, I mean exactly as you described there, that there is a lot of information, like the video that we showed, in which there's simply too little data to create a reasonable explanation. There are a small handful of cases in which we have more data that our analysis simply hasn't been able to fully pull together a picture of what happened. And those are the cases where we talk about where we see some indications of flight characteristics or signature management that are not what we had expected. When it comes to material that we have no material. We have detected no emanations within the UAP task force that would suggest it's anything non-terrestrial in origin. So there's when I say unexplained, I mean everything from too little data to the data that we have doesn't point us towards an explanation, but we'll go wherever the data takes us. Again, we've made no assumptions about what this is or isn't. We're committed to understanding these, and so we'll go wherever that data takes us.
Thank you. That's very helpful, and so I think it bears emphasis. When you say we can't explain, everything that you can't explain is in a bucket called data. Is that correct? And that would mean data collected by sensors, visual observations, everything that we can't explain, quote unquote, is in a bucket called data.
Right. A narrative report from the early 2000s, if it just had a little bit of information on it, would be in our database and it would be unresolved.
I would add to that, it's insufficient data. I mean, that's one of the challenges we have. Insufficient data either on the event itself, the object itself, or insufficient data or plug-in with some other organization or agency that may have had something in that space at that time. So it's a data issue that we're facing in many of these instances, Congressman.
Understood. Thank you very much. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Gallagher.
Gallagher?
Thank
Did
you,
he
Mr.
bring his
Chairman. Thank you for
mallet?
allowing me to join this hearing. I really appreciate the witness's testimony. Mr. Moultrie, as the chairman mentioned, DoD had an initiative to study UFOs in the 1960s called Project Blue Book. It's also been well reported in our briefing and in other places that we have more recent projects, specifically ATIP. Could you describe any other initiatives that the DoD or DoD contractors have managed after Project Blue Book ended and prior to ATIP beginning? Did anything also predate Project Blue Book?
So I can't speak to what may have predated Project Blue Book. I mean, of course, there's Roswell and all these other things that people have talked about over the years. I'm familiar with Blue Book. I'm familiar with ATIP. I haven't seen other documented studies that have been done by DoD in that regard.
So you're not aware of anything in between Project Blue Book and ATIP?
I'm not aware of anything that's official that was done in between those two. Okay. Hasn't been brought to my attention.
Okay. Additionally, are you aware of any other DoD or DoD contract programs focused on UAPs from a technological engineering perspective? And by that I mean, are you aware of any technology initiatives focused on this topic other than initiatives focused on the individual case investigations?
I am not aware of any contractual programs that are focused on anything related to this other than what we are doing in the Navy Task Force and what we are about to launch in terms of our effort.
Same question for you, Mr. Bray.
Same answer, not aware of anything outside what we are doing in the UAP Task Force.
So just to confirm, you're not aware of any technology or engineering resources that have been focused on these efforts besides what we've mentioned today?
Once again, I'll say no contractual or programmatic efforts that are involved. The reason why I qualify it that way, let me qualify it that way. I can't speak to what people may be looking at in the department. Somebody says, I'm looking at something that may be unidentified, and I can't speak to that. I speak to official programs that we have on the record.
It's also been reported that there have been UAP observed and interacting with and flying over sensitive military facilities, particularly, and not just ranges, but some facilities housing our strategic nuclear forces. One such incident allegedly occurred at Malmstrom Air Force Base, in which 10 of our nuclear ICBMs were rendered inoperable. At the same time, a glowing red orb was observed overhead. I'm not commenting on the accuracy of this. I'm simply asking you whether you're aware of it and whether you have any comment on the accuracy of that report.
Let me pass that to Mr. Bray. If you've been looking at UAPs over the last 3 years.
That data is not within the holdings of the UAP task force.
Okay, but are you aware of the report, or that the data exists somewhere?
I have heard stories. I have not seen the official data on that.
So you've just seen informal stories, no official assessment that you've done or exists within DoD that you're aware of regarding the Malmstrom incident?
All I can speak to is, what's within my cognizance of the UAP task force, and we have not looked at that incident.
Well, I would say, it's a pretty high-profile incident. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but that's out there in the ether. You're the guys investigating it. I mean, who else is doing it?
If something was officially brought to our attention, we would look at it. There are many things that are out there in the ether that aren't officially brought to our attention.
So how would it have to be officially brought to your attention? I'm bringing it to your attention.
Sure, so,
this is pretty official.
Sure. So we'll go back and take a look at it, but generally there is some authoritative figure that says there is an incident that occurred. We'd like you to look at this. But in terms of just tracking what may be in the media that says that something occurred at this time, at this place, there are probably a lot of leads that we would have to follow up on. I don't think we have resource to do that right now.
Well, I don't claim to be an authoritative figure, but for what it's worth, I would like you to look into it. And
Sure.
if for no other reason, you could dismiss it and say this is not worth wasting resources on.
Will do.
And then finally, are you aware of a document that appeared around 2019, sometimes called the Admiral Wilson Memo or EW Notes Memo?
Oh my God.
I am not.
You're not.
Are you tracking?
I'm not personally aware of that.
Okay. This is a document in which, again, I'm not commenting on the veracity. I was hoping you would help me with that, in which a former head of DIA claims to have had a conversation with the Dr. Eric Wilson and claims to have sort of been made aware of certain contractors or DoD programs that he tried to get fuller access to and was denied access to. So you're not aware of that?
I'm not aware, Congressman.
In my 10 seconds remaining, then, I guess I just would ask, Mr. Chairman, unanimous consent to enter that memo into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Mr. Krishnamurthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to both of you for appearing today and for your public service.
Probably not.
First question is, there have been no collisions between any U.S. assets and one of these UAPs, correct?
We have not had a collision. We've had at least 11 near misses, though.
And maybe we'll talk about those 11 near misses or any place where there's close proximity. I assume, or tell me if I'm wrong, there's been no attempt, there's no communications or any kind of communication signals that emanate from those objects that we've detected, correct?
That's correct.
And have we attempted to communicate with those objects?
No.
So we don't even put out a alert saying, U.S. Identify yourself. You are, within our flight path or something like that. We haven't said anything like that.
We've not put anything out like that. Generally speaking, for example, in the video that we showed earlier, it appears to be something that is, unmanned, appears to be something that may or may not be in controlled flight, and so we've not attempted any communication with that.
Okay, so, and I assume we've never discharged any armaments against a UAP, correct?
That's correct.
We had the Battle of L.A. Have we ever discharged any weapons? Didn't he just ask that?
I assume we've never discharged any armaments against a UAP, correct?
That's correct.
That's a lie, you idiot, you dummy. Oh, they don't even know anything about the history of ufology.
How about wreckage? Have we come across any wreckage of any kind of object that has now been examined by you?
The UAP task force doesn't have any wreckage that isn't explainable, that isn't consistent with being of terrestrial origin.
Do we have any sensors underwater to detect on submerged UAPs? Anything that is in the ocean or in the seas?
So I think that would be more appropriately addressed in closed session, sir.
Okay. I think one of the biggest questions that I have is, we say with a lot of probability, we say they, quote unquote, probably do represent physical objects, close quote. When we say probably, is that because we cannot conclusively say that they are physical objects?
In the task force report, when I say probably represent physical objects, most of them represent physical objects. There could be some that are more of a meteorological phenomena, something like that, that may not be a physical object in the sense that most people think of something you could go up and touch.
But the ones where you say most of them represent physical objects, can you say that they are definitely, like with 100% certainty, that they are physical objects?
I can say with certainty that a number of these are physical objects.
Okay.
He already answered that earlier. This guy isn't paying attention.
Okay, so there, we can't rule out that some of them may not be physical objects.
So, some certainly could be a sensor anomaly or something like that. Some could be.
Now, how about with regard to UAPs? We've talked about UAPs on training areas, but obviously there's some sensor bias. I would think we put sensors in training areas. How about with regard to non-training areas? Do we track what's in open source and what civilians and others have tracked? And have we found similarities to what they've observed in terms of UAPs in non-training areas to the ones that are in training areas?
The UAP task force has worked very hard to make sure the data set that we're working with is a data set that we have very good control over that data. So we have some partnerships with FAA so that we get some of that, so we get that reporting in. But if it comes to just open source reports or someone says that they saw something, that generally does not make it into our database.
So basically, it sounds like we have a good partnership with FAA, but apart from FAA, we don't have partnerships with other agencies or other entities that might be tracking so that we could enlarge our data set to make comparisons.
So we will. So that's the goal of this next effort, will be to expand that relationship with the rest of government and the interagency, so we can understand what they're seeing, what we're seeing. We can correlate on each other's holdings.
Because I
and
think
resolve them.
that we might have a bias right now going on with regard to just reporting on UAPs being in training areas when we don't really track what's happening elsewhere. Last question. Have our
Hey, Jimmy.
encounters with UAPs altered the development of either our offensive or defensive capabilities, or even our sensor capabilities?
We'd save that for the closed session.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. LaHood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and want to thank the witnesses for being here today. Obviously, this topic of UAPs has attracted a lot of interest in people that are curious about this hearing today. As we talk about, and I would say there's a lot of what I would call amateur interest groups that are involved in the UAP field. My question is, when there are unsubstantiated claims or manufactured claims of UAPs or kind of false information that's put out there, what are the consequences for people that are involved with that or groups that are involved with that?
Thanks, David.
So one of the concerns that we have is that there are a lot of individuals and groups that are putting information out there that that could be considered to be somewhat self-serving. We're trying to do what's in the best interest of, one, the Department of Defense, and then two, what's in the best interest of the public, to ensure that we can put factual-based information back into the mainstream and back into the bloodstream of the reporting media that we have, so people understand what's there. It's important because we are attempting, as this hearing has drawn out, to understand, one, what may just be natural phenomenon, two, what may be sensor phenomenology or things that were happening with sensors, three, what may be legitimate counterintelligence threats to places that we have or bases or installations, or security threats to our platforms. And anything that diverts us off of what we have with the resources that have been allocated to us, send us off in these spurious chases and hunts that are just not helpful. And they also they also contribute to the undermining of the confidence that the Congress and the American people have that we are trying to get to the root cause of what's happening here, report on that, and then feed that back into our national security apparatus so we are able to protect the American people and our allies. So it is harmful, it is hurtful, but hopefully if we get more information out there, we'll start to lessen the impact of some of those spurious reports.
So just taking that a step further, so that misinformation, false narratives, manufactured, so what are the consequences? Are there legal consequences? Are there examples that you can give us where people have been held accountable by this misinformation or disinformation?
I can't give you, any examples where somebody's been legally held liable for putting something out there, but...
Well, I guess what's the deterrent from people engaging in this activity?
I don't know. I don't have that answer. That's something that
that's why we have
dialogue with Congress,
grifters, hoaxers, cheaters, liars,
to help legislate those laws to say what should be the legal ramifications that we could use to potentially hold individuals accountable, whether it be citizens or information that might be injected into our media by other forces or other countries, if you will.
And in terms of DOD's review and analysis in this field, I mean, is there a standard in place when it comes to UAPs? I mean, is there any guidance you look to that's codified in law or otherwise within DOD that kind of sets out the standards for UAPs and what to look for?
I think that's part of what the group that we're standing up now will be chartered to do. We're actually, from my organization, we'll be looking at policy and standards that we have to come to you and work with you to actually put in place and promulgate across our government.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Welch.
Thank you. I'm going to follow on the line of questions from Mr. LaHood. Gentlemen, what seems incredibly difficult for you is that there's two almost competing but different narratives. One is no one knows whether there's extraterrestrial life. It's a big universe, and it would be pretty presumptuous to have a hard and fast conclusion. And then if there is, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that there is some exploration coming here. And that underlies a lot of the reports you get. I think Mr. LaHood was asking about that. People think there must be extraterrestrial life, and it's not at all beyond the pale that there would be a visit here. On the other hand, as the DOD, you have the responsibility to make sure that our national security is protected, and that if there are surveillance drones or active drones that can disable our systems, that has to be analyzed, has to be stopped. So how do you divide how do you separate your responsibilities where you get all these reports from folks who maybe in good faith, maybe not, believe that you should be investigating every possible report of a extraterrestrial incident? I'll start with you, Mr. Moultrie.
Sure, indeed, Congressman, and thank you.
That guy, Mr. Welch, didn't even know what language to speak. He didn't even know how to ask that question. None of these guys have an interest at all.
Thank you for the question. It's important that we, as a part of this effort, really build out the relationship that we have with others, including NASA, and for the reasons that you just pointed out. So there are elements in our government that are engaged in looking for life in other places, and they have been doing that for decades. Right? They've been searching for extraterrestrial life. There are astrobiologists who have been doing this too. We're a part of that same government, and so our goal is not to potentially cover up something if we were to find something. It's to understand what may be out there, examine what it may mean for us, if there are any, from a defense perspective, any national security implications or ramifications, but then to work with organizations as appropriate, if it's a weather phenomenology with NOAA, if it's a potential for extraterrestrial life or an indication of extraterrestrial life, with someone like NASA.
So the transparency actually is very important.
Completely.
For public consumption.
Completely.
But we're going to have a classified briefing, and without going into the details of what kinds of secrets that we can't share here, what is it? What are we protecting? I don't know if you can answer this question in this open forum, but in fact, your perception of what it is we have to, quote, protect.
So I think right now what's really important for us to protect is how we know certain things. So there are a lot of things that we know, whether it be about the thinking of other leaders around the world, the weapon systems that are being developed, or how we detect things that may be threats to us. Many of those things are the result of some of our most sensitive sources and methods, and we'll use those things not just for this effort, but those same sources and methods are used to help protect us from adversaries and from others who might mean to do us harm. There aren't separate UAP sensors. There's not a separate UAP processing computer. There's not a separate UAP dissemination chain or whatever. So it's the same process. It's the same system that we have that helps us do all that. We need to protect.
Do not talk Q in this chat room, please.
Protect that, because this is something that that we're looking at, but we're sure there are going to be other things that we'll look at in the future that will need those same sensors, we'll need those same sources and methods to help us.
I think everybody is streaming this right now. We'll check. I'll check.
So we're protecting the fact of that this nation has developed capabilities that enable us to know what may be threats to us and to counter those threats before they become something of a national issue.
Thank you very much. I want to thank both you, Mr. Bray, and you, Mr. Moultrie, for your appearance today. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlemen, beyond videos, is there a range of other information that the executive branch has that would be valuable to the American people while protecting sources and methods, obviously? The details of individual encounters, including the time, place, and details of an encounter? And does the AIMSOG have a clear and repeatable process for considering public release as part of the process?
Chairman Carson,
and do you commit to building that process if it's not in place?
The UAP Task Force, the security classification guide that the UAP Task Force has been operating under that I approved really was meant to protect those sources and methods and meant to protect any knowledge that an adversary intelligence entity may gain from understanding what we're tracking, how we track it, or when we're tracking it, or if we're not. And so that has been an important piece in the balance between transparency and preserving our warfighting advantage, because the U.S. military does train as it would fight. What I will commit to is, at least for that material that's under my authority as the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, for information that we have when it does not involve sources and methods, and when we can, with a reasonable degree of confidence, determine that it does not pose a foreign intelligence or national security threat, and it's within my authority to do so, I commit to declassifying that. So I believe very much in the transparency of this, and we work very hard to balance that with our national security needs.
And I'll just add, Congressman, just over the last 3-4 months, I think that the intelligence community and the national defense apparatus have disclosed more information on various events than it has in probably the previous 10 years. You have our commitment to work closely with the Director of National Intelligence and others in the declassification and downgrading of intel apparatus to ensure that we can get whatever information that we can out to the American people and to the public writ large.
Great. Greatly appreciated, sir. Ranking Member Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Stefanik is en route, I believe, just real quickly, but in the interim, if I could, if you'll indulge me, I just have a couple.
I only see one other show that's doing this that's in the UFO community.
Real small questions. One is, do we have an example? Can you cite a specific example of an object that can't be explained as having been human-made or natural?
Here we go.
I mean, the example that I would say that that is still unresolved, that I think everyone understands quite well, is the 2004 incident from Nimitz. We have data on that, and it simply remains unresolved. Does not mean it resolves to being something, right, that is easily explainable or difficult, or well, obviously it resolves to being something that is difficult to explain. But I can't point to something that definitively was not man-made, but I can point to a number of examples in which remain unresolved.
Gotcha. With regard to videos that have appeared in open source channels, for example, the TicTac video, does AIMSOG maintain control of videos, and how do you prevent leaks of potentially classified videos or other material?
So the AIMSOG, as we establish that organization, we will have a process for classified and compartmented holdings, and we will find a way of getting positive control over those. We have our sensitive access programs and special access programs that allow us to put what we call SAPs around things, and then there's controlled access programs that allow us to put caps around things. So we'll have that in place. Our goal will be ensuring that we're sharing that with the appropriate analysts and the appropriate exploiters, if you will, who can look at that data too. What we don't want to do is bring something into a DoD database or a DoD holding and then have so many wrappers around it, it's not available to those who really need to look at it and to exploit it. And that's one of the reasons that we're establishing relationships with the interagency, with the IC and others to be able to do that, sir. But we will do our best to maintain positive control over the materials that we have within our holdings.
Thank you.
Chairman Schiff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just going back to the 2021 report, under the category of UAP appear to demonstrate advanced technology, those 18 incidents in which some of the UAP appear to remain stationary, winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. It goes on to say, in a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. I couldn't tell from that whether that small number of cases was a part of the subset of 18. That is, among the 18 which appeared to move with unusual pattern or flight characteristics, did some of those also emit radio frequency energy?
Here we go.
I would have to check with our UAP task force on that. I believe, without getting into specifics that we can do in the closed session, at least some that we have detected RF emissions from were not behaving oddly otherwise.
And the significance of measuring that radio frequency energy is what? That we suspect that this was some form of aircraft in which there were radio transmissions?
The biggest thing that you're looking for there is any indication of an effort to jam whatever sensors that we may have looking at it.
But I would also add to that radio frequency, as you know, Congressman, is used to control various platforms too. So the fact of emanations coming off of any platform, whether it be a UAV or another platform, could be radio frequency activity related to that entity transmitting out or something transmitting to that platform. And of course, we have a sensitivity with our airborne platforms of picking it up, which is one of the reasons that we try to prevent people from using their cell phones on airplanes and things like that. It's very sensitive to RF emanations. So that's a part of what we'll be looking at in the AIMSOG. What is this? Is this something that we can collect on, and can we start to characterize the signaling environment around the emanations that may be coming off of some of these UAPs?
So that energy then that was recorded could be either an effort to jam, or it could be an effort to control a UAV. or any other communication with that craft.
I would say that's accurate.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. As the ODNI report makes clear, one possible explanation for UAPs is that we are detecting U.S. aircraft, either secret air programs or even test prototypes. I won't ask you in this setting, obviously, to describe any secret DoD programs. That said, I do want to make sure the U.S. government isn't chasing its own tail. Firstly, do you have a clear and repeatable process to check with compartmented programs about whether a UAP sighting is attributable to a U.S. aircraft? Secondly, does the AIMSOG staff have the clearances and read-ons that they need to investigate all of these incidents? And thirdly, when your staff cannot be read on.
Are you kidding me?
Are your questions to those who are read on even being answered?
So I'll start, and then I'll pass that to Mr. Bray.
I'm sorry,
So
I
we're
talked
very
over that.
conscious
What
of
was the question again, sir?
Staff cannot be read on. Are your questions to those who are read on even being answered?
So I'll start, and then I'll pass that to Mr. Bray. So we're very conscious of the potential blue-on-blue issue or U.S. on U.S., and so we've established relationships with organizations and entities that are potentially flying or developing platforms for their own interests, if you will. And our goal is to continue, and we have a repeatable process. I think we've had that process for some time, to deconflict activities that we may have to ensure that we are not potentially reporting on something that may be a developmental platform or a U.S. operational platform that is performing either testing or performing a mission. So we will have that in place. We've already had those discussions with organizations and entities. We want to ensure that we're protecting their equities. We want to ensure that we're protecting their sources and methods while also getting at what we have here. We want to be able to deconflict those.
Absolutely. The UAP Task Force has had a process in place to work with other elements of the Department of Defense and other elements of the government to ensure that that there's an as simple a way as possible to deconflict those. And when we reference that in the report, I should say that we were simply accounting for the fact that there could possibly be one or two data points that had leaked through, but we were quite confident that was not the explanation.
How are you all liaisoning with Space Command? Specifically, how are you partnering with the parts of the U.S. Space Command responsible for space domain awareness? And how, if at all, are you partnering with the Space Force to analyze UAPs?
The UAP Task Force has a very good relationship with Space Force, as it does with the rest of the Department of Defense. We have pulled analysts in from Space Force to ensure that that we're availing ourselves of that expertise, as well as any other material they may have that would be helpful.
And Congressman, as you know, Space Force and Space Command, they have responsibility for space domain awareness. So what we've done, we coordinated with Space Force, we coordinated with their J2, and she is on board in terms of helping us plug into what they have and for us to have this interactive exchange of information and data. And we're doing that with all the services, not just with Space Force or Space Command.
Thank you, sir.
This is getting frustrating. I'm actually like tired. I'm like, it's an hour and a half into it. And, you know, we haven't heard anything new, but it is historic. So let's try not to bash. I mean, we know what's going on. This has to happen for things to progress. So let's, you know, even myself, I keep saying, you know, it's very important that this takes place. We'll talk about it tonight. I'll ask you guys to come on and we'll shoot the breeze. It won't be historic for us, but it is historic for us. So, you know, I'm trying to give these guys slack, but they just don't seem really that prepared like I would expect. And now we're starting to hear the same things being repeated.
Questions? All right, Chairman Schiff. All right. With that, I want to thank you all for taking the time out. I also want to thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for participating in this very historical and important hearing. I think it's one of the few times we can demonstrate some degree of bipartisanship around UAPs and UFOs. So I love it. Appreciate it. Thank you. And we will see you all. We will recess this hearing for the moment and return in a closed session at noon.
Wow. You guys want to go back and we're gonna go over this again tonight. But I'll pick out a couple of things. I mean, there's nothing really to get excited about. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. You guys already know that we weren't going to get anything new. I don't know what anybody expected. You know what I want to show you? Let's take a look at the UFO. I want to pull that up and get that on pause, because they have a clear version of it than the one that was sent to me by John earlier. And just happened to pull it up right at the right spot. So let me go a little slow. Slow and low, that is. I want to see this thing. There's something about it that looked interesting. Let's see if I can get it the first time. It's coming up, and I don't want to miss it. Am I not doing this right? I mean, it's not playing. Duh. Oh, I was right there, Richie. Yeah, I definitely want to get this and look at it. These guys were funny. They couldn't even get the, like me. I mean, it's not my job to get it, but I want to get it and pause it and take a good look at it, man. Oh, I had it. It's coming. I have to get ahead of it and stop it. Ah, you see? I looked away. I want to get this thing, man. I want to take a look at it. It looks weird. I knew that was going to happen. Oh my God, I'm going to hurt myself. You see, your mother's got 19 lips. I paused it, and it didn't pause. Got it. Oh my God. and it looks like a balloon. Look at it. There's a freaking string on the bottom of it. It's a balloon. Oh my God, they showed us a balloon. It's a balloon. Oh my God. Oh my God. We're going to take a closer look at this object now. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Oh my God, it's a freaking balloon. You dummies. You dummies, dummies, dummies. Look. Oh, you can't see that? How come? Oh, I know why. Let me save it. This is amazing. I can't believe you didn't see what I just saw. You guys are going to laugh. You're going to laugh. And I can't pull it up. It won't let me. Let me try doing it the way I used to do it and see if it works. Still says my browser doesn't work for this. Are you kidding me? It's a balloon, and I'm going to bring it over. Hold on, there's another way I can bring it up here. This sucks that my browser, I think I have to restart the computer. But let me add it here. I'll get it. Hold on. Drag and drop. Add. Screenshot. Here we go. There it is. 5 seconds, I'll have it for you. Here we go. I have to remove myself. Just take a look. Did that not look like a balloon? Ready? I'll do it again. I have to. It's the only way I can show it. I don't know what to tell you guys. It's a joke. We're being laughed at. It's a freaking balloon. I'm proud of me to just do that as quickly as I did. And here we are being duped again by, I mean, don't they see it? Did you guys hear? Hello? Hello? Oh, that's my backdrop now. Watch. Hold on. Hold on. Stupid asses. Anyway, that's it right there. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about this tonight. Doesn't that should make you so mad right now? Seeing that they were trying to tell us the dot that they flew by was a UFO, or UAP, or UAV, or unknown. That looks exactly like a balloon. I'm not sad. I thought there were some interesting things that they did talk about. Yeah, when they said, have we ever fired any arsenal at it? I think they're going from 2004 to current. And there's no consequences for filing a fake UFO report. Like, who would do that? In the military. You know what I mean? I ate so fast before this morning show. They know it's a balloon. One more. I don't know what to tell you, folks. But, wow. Congressional balloon hearings. It is just amazing. See, when I saw it fly by, I'm so used to looking at videos, I immediately knew there was something wrong with that photo. that video they were showing us. I mean, it's ridiculous. That is not from the Batman balloon hoax either. That also was a hoax. I don't know what they think we are, but they do think we are stupid. And how they don't know that that's probably most likely a weather balloon of some sort. How do they not know? Don't they see the hanging off the bottom? I mean, it's as plain as the nose on your face, if you have one. A face. You know what I mean? This was fun. I better control my lap dog, Dorothy, before something bad happens to her, and I don't mean it in the physical mean. I mean no computer, no phone, no internet. Huh? I don't know what you're getting at. I don't know. I'm not following everything that goes on in the chat room. But Dorothy's here. Yeah. This is just awful. Adam Schiff is the biggest Russiagate faker out there. He's, look, I don't often say or do it, but I wished, I'm not going to say it. Let's just say I wish the worst stuff on that guy. I just don't like him. It doesn't matter what side, left, right, middle, up, down, independent. The guy's shouldn't even be there. I know. He shouldn't even be there. If Pelosi was there, I would be so irate. But anyway, this is the historic event we've all been waiting for. I'm not coming back in an hour and 15 minutes to watch the closing arguments or whatever they're going to do. But I'm sure it's going to be much of the same, nothing. So with that being said, we'll be back tonight. I don't think I really wasn't paying attention to PayPal or anything because, you know, it's not the normal show. But thank you last night for those of you who did the PayPal thing. I think I said it for John Griffin and Nathan. Thank you, guys. And then, oh, yeah, there was Cash App that was by Rochelle Lynch and Babs for $5 each. Thank you very much for that. And the super chatters today, thank you very much for your support this early in the morning. It is almost 11:15 here on the East Coast. I am going to go, I don't know. How you doing, Yoga with Denise? And we'll be back tonight. I'm going to open up the lines for you guys to join the show. And when I say the lines, I may open up some phone lines if I can fix my screen sharing problem. I do have a phone number for the show, believe it or not. So it's 623-252-2637. And you know what? When I have the phone up on, you can call me. That's the show to goof on. That's the number to goof on. That's the end of the show. Thanks, everybody, for a great hour and 40 minutes of our lives. We'll never get it back. But nonetheless, we saw history today. And I want to thank everybody for hanging out. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you guys later on tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, new time. I think I'm going to stay there. Can be and might be on later on. I don't know. But we'll see you guys later on, okay? Thanks for everything, and enjoy your day.
There's a look at this thing. It's rotating. Well, go ahead.
downwards treasured sites in Christianity.
There's a degree of this proof for UFOs, descending over